One bright morning in Baker Street, I, Dr. Watson, found Sherlock Holmes deep in thought over the ashes of his pipe, when a letter arrived for me. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. It came from my old school friend Percy Phelps. He wrote from Woking, begging me to come at once and to bring Holmes with me if possible. His words spoke of a terrible misfortune that had left him ill and near despair. Holmes looked up. "A client before breakfast, Watson? Great. Let us go at once." By noon, we were on the train, the city slipping away behind us. The letter had mentioned Briarbrae, the house where Percy lay sick under the care of his fiancée and her brother. I knew Percy as a clever, good-hearted man, and my heart was heavy, wondering what disaster could have struck him so deeply. We reached Woking in the afternoon, and a neat, cheerful young lady met us at the station. "I am Annie Harrison," she said. "Percy will be so glad you've come. He has spoken of nothing else since he sent his letter." She took us by carriage to Briarbrae, a pretty country house shaded by elms. Inside we found Percy pale and thin, lying on a sofa. His hands trembled as he reached out to us. "Watson, and Mr. Holmes too. You don't know what it means to see you here." Holmes nodded kindly. "You have been ill, Mr. Phelps, but I trust we shall soon find the cause of it." Percy tried to smile. "The cause? It was the loss of the treaty that broke me. You've heard? The Naval Treaty, an agreement between England and Italy and another great power. If it had fallen into the wrong hands, war might have followed." He told us how, late one evening, his superior had asked him to copy this important document at the Foreign Office. The work would take all night, so Percy had arranged to stay after hours. His office door locked automatically, no one could enter without a key. He had just finished copying several pages when the bell rang below. He went to answer, and when he returned, the treaty had vanished. As Percy spoke, his eyes burned with the memory of that night. "I was alone," he said. "The clerk and messengers had gone home. I locked the door and began copying the treaty. Near midnight, the bell rang violently. I hurried down, thinking some messenger had come back. The doorkeeper's wife said someone had rung, but when she opened the door, no one was there. I ran upstairs again, and the document was gone." He had searched everywhere, under the table, behind the curtains, in the fireplace. The only other person known to be inside was the caretaker's wife, Mrs. Tangey, whose husband was asleep downstairs. She swore she had seen no one pass. When the loss was discovered, the whole Foreign Office was in an uproar. The police questioned everyone. Percy was blamed at first, but the shock and shame struck him down with brain fever. He had lain at Briarbrae ever since, trembling between fear and hope, while the missing treaty was still nowhere to be found. Holmes listened quietly, his fingers together and his eyes half closed. "It is a curious case indeed," he said softly. "You were away from your office no more than 10 minutes. "Barely that." "And the door was locked behind you?" "Yes. Locked, as always." "Then we must find out who else had a key." Holmes's eyes brightened. "Watson, we go to London." The next day, Holmes and I visited the Foreign Office. The clerks looked startled to see him, but the officials admitted him with great respect. The room where the treaty had vanished was small and bare. One desk, one chair, a single tall window opening onto a narrow street. Holmes moved slowly about the room, noting every detail: the lock, the position of the bell rope, the door hinges, the dust on the sill. He questioned Mrs. Tangy, a stout, nervous woman who swore she had heard nothing that night but the bell. Her husband, she said, had been asleep downstairs. Holmes examined the corridor, then the stairs. He spent a long moment by the door. Finally, he murmured, "There was more than one bell that night, I think. Someone meant to draw Mr. Phelps away." That evening, he returned with me to Briarbrae. Percy waited anxiously, but Holmes only said, "Patience, my dear sir. The matter begins to clear." Then, without explaining, he spent an hour wandering about the garden, studying the paths and the windows that looked toward the sick room. That night, Holmes asked quietly, "Has anyone visited you often besides Miss Harrison and her brother?" "Only Joseph," said Percy. "He's Annie's brother, staying here to help. A fine fellow, though a bit careless." Holmes said nothing, but later he asked Annie where Joseph's room was. She pointed to the window just across from Percy's. Holmes nodded thoughtfully. For several nights Percy had heard soft sounds outside his window, footsteps perhaps, or the creak of a branch. Annie had dismissed them as fancy, but Holmes insisted we keep watch. At midnight we hid in the garden, behind a clump of lilac bushes. The house was still, the moon pale on the grass. From Percy's darkened room came no sound but his slow breathing. An hour passed. Then, a faint rustle near the window. A shadow crept across the wall, a man's outline against the curtain. Holmes's hand tightened on my arm. The window opened soundlessly. A figure leaned in, reaching toward the writing desk beside Percy's bed. Holmes sprang forward. "Now, Watson!" We burst from our hiding place. The intruder gave a cry and fled into the corridor, but Holmes was too quick. In another moment the man was caught, the lamp turned up, and the light fell on the pale, sweating face of Joseph Harrison. For a moment Percy could only stare. "Joseph? You?" Harrison sank into a chair, gasping. I meant no harm. I was only trying to get back what I hid before." Holmes drew from the man's pocket a small crumpled parcel wrapped in paper. Inside lay the long-lost treaty. "Hidden in your own room, I fancy," Holmes said coolly. "You stole it from the Foreign Office, intending to sell it abroad. When Percy fell ill, you dared not move it. But when you heard he was recovering, you feared discovery and tried to take it back tonight." Harrison groaned. "It was madness. I thought only to make my fortune." Percy covered his face. "Annie, your brother." Holmes spoke gently. "He will answer for his crime, but your own honor is safe, Mr. Phelps. The treaty shall be in the Foreign Secretary's hands by morning." The color returned to Percy's cheeks for the first time in weeks. Annie wept softly beside him, half from sorrow, half from relief. By dawn, the precious document lay once more in the Foreign Office vaults, and a scandal that might have shaken Europe was quietly ended. When we said goodbye at Briarbrae, Percy was sitting up by the window, the sunshine bright on his face. "You've saved my life, Holmes," he said simply. Holmes smiled, lighting his pipe. "A case with too much shadow and not enough fresh air, my dear Watson. A few facts, a little patience, and the truth shows itself." As we rode back to London, I thought of Percy's smile and the gleam of contentment in Holmes's eyes. Another adventure ended well.